Hey everybody, it's Robert coming to you again from the Mahone Ingram Cemetery. This is the cemetery that began as a burial ground for people enslaved on the Mahone plantation, and their descendants continued to be buried out here. This cemetery was heavily vandalized by people who were poaching trees from this cemetery. The historic cedar trees that were growing out here and the very old oak tree that was a centerpiece to this cemetery were cut down by people who only wanted to steal the wood. They absolutely destroyed certain areas of the cemetery, leaving trees laying on the ground, tree litter. So I've made it my personal mission to try to rectify some of the damage that was done up here. So for the past several weeks, I began cleaning this cemetery up, flagging graves, and cleaning up some of the graves themselves. However, after I began cleaning up this cemetery, maybe 2 weeks into it, I got very sick. I had COVID really bad, and it put me down for a month. So what you're about to see was filmed a month ago, and then we're going to bring you the update today. So let's get to it. All right, so this is day 6 out here in the Mahone Ingram Cemetery, and I'm going to start this day a little bit different by taking some time to kind of clean up some of these individual graves. We still have a lot of this destruction to clean up out here, but I need kind of a rest day, but we're still making progress out here at the same time. So to start off with, I'm going to focus on the grave of Mr. Manson Hamler here. His headstone used to stand up at the end of this grave, but at some time broke and has been set on top of his slab here. Manson Hamler was born in Talbot County, Georgia, August 2nd, 1846, and he died in Meriwether County, Georgia, March the 5th, 1913. He was 66 years old, 3 months, and 3 days when he died. So his grave really fascinates me out here. It's a very neat headstone, very nice headstone at one time. So I'm going to clean, of course, this slab off, and I've also got some D2 that I'm going to treat his grave with here. So we're going to do that and see if we can't make it look a little bit better. And I actually do have a big broom in the truck. I know people are going to be wondering why I'm just using my hands to do this. I'm just going to set this piece to the side for the moment. But anyway, I don't think I need anything other than my hands at the moment. So his headstone is in pieces here, and I'm going to move these pieces for just a moment, just so we can effectively clean this slab off. And our goal is always to do no harm in a place like this. So I'm going to be really careful with this piece because it's got some pretty serious cracks in it. And we don't want it to break anymore. But now I can get, that's a little baby holly right there. Get that off of here. A lot of this just brushes off this grave really easily. And this piece here is where his headstone used to be before it broke. Another thing I want to touch base on too while we're doing this is that I've had a bunch of people ask me about, why don't I have a huge crew working out here, and there's multiple reasons. Most of my close friends work traditional jobs, 9 to 5, so I'm blessed in being able to come out here and do something like this. But at the same time, the property owner here who owns this property, I told y'all before, it's a large corporation, and they're concerned about a huge crew coming out here, and then the liability of that falls on them. Now, of course, the irony in that situation is the people who were stealing lumber didn't have permission to be here, and of course, they were doing much more dangerous things than we're doing. But still, because I do want to keep the opportunity to clean this up and make this place nice again, I don't want to, you know, push it with them on bringing a bunch of people out here. So, you know, I'll do it myself. And I don't mind doing it myself either. So, you know, there's no reason to shame anybody for not being out here or anything like that. This is just, you know, how it has to be, and I don't mind it. So let me go grab that broom and we're gonna deep clean this. So I skipped the broom and opted for just a brush. Now, regular viewers of my channel will be surprised to learn that I actually do own a brush. We'll get this nice marker here swept off. I'm going to need to move this piece as well. Again, really gently. Get all the loose dirt off of this and all the roots, anything like that. You can see the outline of where that headstone has been laying for so many years. Yes, Manson Hamler here. Seen a few old census records that a few of y'all have actually provided and put down in the comments. So, you know, always check the comments for an additional history lesson when looking at these videos, because there's some really great researchers out there. But seen some pretty interesting details about him. And we've got to be real careful when brushing the edges of this, because that stone is kind of just crumbling right there. We don't want to make any pieces fall apart on it. All right, I'd say that's mostly cleaned up, except for all the places that I missed. And I'm just going to spray this whole thing down with D2. I'm going to brush it. I'm going to brush the D2 in just so it starts really working on this stone. But I'm not really going to rinse it right now, because I'm just going to use the whole wet and leave it. Spray it down and leave it method, because I don't really have the resources with me to be able to scrub this down. But this D2 will work without scrubbing. We just spray it down and let it do its thing, work with the nature. And it'll start cleaning the stone up all by itself without us really having to do anything. But we will do a little bit more of a deep scrub on the headstone itself as soon as we rub this in. I'm not rubbing the D2 off, I'm just rubbing it in, so next get of rain we have will start helping this stuff work and clean this grave up. All right, so we got it rubbed in. Now just another little spray on it. No rinsing today, just spraying it on there again. And I'll let that stuff start eating at all the microbes and the nasty that's growing on this thing. All right, so now that we got the D2 working its magic on this stone, I'm gonna go ahead and set the pieces of the headstone back on it like it was. Kind of just brush it lightly and get all the dirt off of it. And again, being real careful with these so they don't break anymore. That's the bottom. All right, and this is the midsection here. This is the one we have to be especially careful with, because it's got a bunch of hairline fractures through it. There we go, just like that. Of course, the two top pieces. Just like that. All right, so now I'm going to take the D2, and this one I am going to scrub and rinse just to see how much we can bring back out this headstone. All All right, so I've got that sprayed down with the D2, went ahead and scrubbed it, rinsed it, and then scrubbed it again. So now we're just going to let it sit. I think that this one is going to take a little bit of time to actually clean up. A lot of that, you know, little biological growth that's in there, the little algae and stuff. I can see a little bit of an improvement in the stone already, but a lot of that stuff that's growing on there is going to take time for this D2 to eat on it. So we're just going to go ahead and let this soak in there and start working on it. And we're going to go over here and see what we can do with these. All right, so this is the grave of Josie Copeland over here, and this is another really fascinating grave. She was actually born the same year as Manson Hamler was over there in 1846. And this stone has a lot of really good information on it. Kind of hard for me to see right now because of the dirt on it. I don't have my flashlight. But let's go ahead and get the D2 on it, and then we'll be able to read it after that. I think this one may clean up a little bit faster than the other one. Since that other one's been face up for so long, it's gotten a lot more contaminants in the stone. This one has not. But with this one, I'm just going to go ahead and do D2 spray, scrub it a little bit, and then we'll just let it sit for a few minutes before we rinse it off. But we'll get this D2 to kind of suds up on it for a minute, and we'll be able to read this because this stone has a lot of great genealogical information on it. It says Josie Copeland, wife of Joe Copeland. It also has her parents on there, daughter of James and Lizzie Dozier. And she was born December 13th, 1846, so she would have been born during slavery time as well. Born a slave more than likely, being in this cemetery. And she died December 13th, 1926. Now, interestingly enough, this is an engraved headstone. This isn't like a poured concrete where the letters were stamped in. This is an engraved headstone, but the 9 on here was engraved backwards, which we frequently have seen in some of these African American cemeteries, but often in the stamping, like they would use a 6 backwards or something like that to create the 9. So it's interesting that it's actually engraved in here like that. All right, so we'll just let that D2 soak in for a minute, and we'll come back and rinse it off and see if there's any kind of improvement. Before we do that, we're going to jump over to another Hamler. So right beside Josie, we have Buford Hamler, probably related to Manson Hamler over there. This is just a child. This is actually a daughter of Will and Lula Hamler. And she was born April 26, 1889, and died July 26, 1893. Now this stone actually does not have as much contaminants on it as Josie's or Manson Hamler's do. Let's just give it a nice gentle wipe down here. This one's kind of loose in the ground, so be real gentle with it. All right, and again, we'll go ahead and let the D2 start eating on that one as well. And we'll go ahead and treat the other one over here, but we're not going to wipe that one down. And let me show you why. All right, so this is Mrs. Leola Creshaw. At the bottom it has 68 in quotation marks. This is a poured concrete stone, and this is a really common one that we see in African American cemeteries around here. However, this is one that you would never actually want to use the scrubbing method with the D2 on. This is definitely just a spray it and leave it situation. This concrete has a real coarse texture on top, and I'm afraid that if we start really scrubbing it with the brush, we'll start removing some of that sand and some of that material from it. Now this D2 will just get in there and just eat off some of the biological growth that's in there, and that growth is actually what is damaging this stone in combination with just weather and being pounded by the rain. But we're just going to spray this D2 on there. Like all this moss that's growing on top of the stone here, this is actually growing into the pores of this concrete, and as this stuff grows in there, its roots or whatever kind of system it has going into the concrete actually go in there and split up the different little pieces of the sand that make up this concrete, and that's what kind of causes it to crumble. So again, not something that, you know, is good for the stone. Maybe kind of pretty to see a stone with that kind of patina on it, but it's definitely not preservation, because all of this stuff eats at and will eventually destroy these stones. So again, give it just a nice coating of this D2, and this is one that we'll just have to check back on in several months to see how it cleans up. So there should be enough time to jump back over to Manson's headstone and give it another rinse and see if we start seeing any improvement. And while I expected it would take a little bit more time for Manson Hamler's tombstone to improve, but look at this. It has really improved. In just such a very short amount of time. And it rained, and I think that's what helped it improve, because this is actually day 7 out here in the Mahone Cemetery. So when I left last night, I said I was going to show you Manson Hamler's stone and go through them as we started to clean them up. And I didn't do that because I wound up finding more theft out here in the cemetery. So right after I cleaned these headstones, I went to give it a few minutes to let the D2 work before we rinsed them, and I went and sat down and noticed that our game cameras had been stolen. But they missed one that was up in the trees, so you know, hopefully we've got something on that. We had to re-notify the sheriff's office. The sheriff's office is doubling down on their efforts to catch whoever's doing this. That being said, this is the first return that I'm aware of that these the tree poachers have done out here in this cemetery. And at this point, I feel like that they won't be back. They obviously stole the game camera because they came in here and saw it and didn't want to be seen on camera, and it was more of a bait camera anyway, to get, you know, to be obvious that there's cameras out here. So they got that camera, and they've obviously seen that we've been cleaning this place up, as you can see out there, and that their hard work of cutting these trees down has kind of gone to waste, because we're getting rid of the stuff that they were going to come back for. So I kind of, at this point, I don't think that they're going to be back. At least I'm crossing my fingers that they won't be back. We're not going to let go of our efforts of trying to catch these people. But that's kind of where we're at. I saw that the camera had been stolen, dropped what I was doing over here, and now it's another day. But anyway, this is a really good example of how this D2 works with the elements, works with rain, and helps continue cleaning up this stone, even though it's only been, you know, less than 24 hours that we sprayed it down. The rain shower came and really helped this stone clean up. It looks amazing and is just going to continue to look better. So I want to come over here, and we can also see a marked improvement in Josie Copeland's stone too. I mean, we can actually read it now without, you know, light or anything, so that is looking a lot better. In fact, you can see the backwards 9 engraved in there really well now. And Buford Hamler stone, I don't really see a marked change in it. I'd have to look back at the video myself, but we'll know that it'll continue to improve as well. And then this was the last one that we did last night, and this one's going to take a while before we really see a noticeable change on it, since we did no scrubbing on it. It's just going to kind of have to work with the elements to continue to clean up. So while we've still got the cleaning products out, let's go in here, and there are a couple more stones that can be worked on over in this section. So this is where the Ingrams are buried here, and this is where Mr. Joe Ingram used to come out here and take care of that plot. He was, they're kind of the newest burials, I think the last burials out here, and he's the last, you know, descendant that really used to come out here and take care of it. But right here is Mr. Isaac Carter. This is obviously a veteran's grave. And it doesn't look too bad. Probably the shade of the trees has kind of helped it stay looking good, but we can see all those little black spots on it. Those are not good for the stone. That's again that growth on the stone. And we know that this one will clean up very nicely. Being a government marker, we've done a couple of these before. So this is Mr. Isaac Carter buried out here. So Mr. Isaac Carter, Georgia, Private Company A, 316 Service Battalion Quartermaster. I think it's Quartermaster Corps, World War I. He was born August 31st, 1892, and he died June 24th, 1955. So I'm going to go ahead and let this D2 work on his stone for a minute, and we'll come and rinse it off and give it a brushing. All right, so let's re-moisten that a little bit. We're going to start with the top on this one, because this is where most of the growth is on this stone here. So we're just going to kind of give that a rub down. And the D2 will definitely have to work on that to clean it off. But we've got all these little spots on here. Oh, look. Oh, wow. They're already starting to come off. Cool. I was a little bit worried that they wouldn't come off of the stone, at least not easily. But it's already, yeah, look at that. Look at that. Definitely going to be a satisfying cleanup with this one. All right, Mr. Isaac Carter here. Need to bring him back out a flag. I really should be using water at this point, but because of this kind of growth that's on here, that's why I'm still spraying that D2 on it. Because you don't want to waste the D2 by rinsing the stone with it. It's just expensive stuff, but all right, let's see if we can't get a big reveal here. Just gonna use my jug of water to rinse this off, and then just do a little bit at first. Yeah. Oh wow! Are y'all seeing that? Look at that! Look at that change right there. Yeah, Isaac Carter stone is going to clean up real good. See, we need to do the sides too. I'll go ahead and wipe this side down. And hit this one. Let's go ahead and rinse it again. I've got the spray bottle of water, but I just brought this out for now since we're just doing like this one. But look at that. That's an incredible change already. Still got a lot of these little black spots in some of the finer areas. So we could come back with like a toothbrush or a pick and get in there, and that would clean all of that out. But I don't think I've got anything smaller than just this brush with me today. So what we're going to do is we're going to spray it back down. So take special care to spray in all the little nooks and crannies on here. And this is the point that we're just going to kind of leave it and let the D2 do its thing. The longer you leave it on there, the better it works. And it continues cleaning it and working with nature. So amazing. And none of this is sponsored by D2, by the way. It's a product that I fully support. It is the only product that is recognized as being safe for cleaning headstones by most preservationists, myself included. So it's the only one that I use, and it's environmentally safe. Oh, it is environmentally safe. And speaking of the environment, we just ran a scorpion out. There's a scorpion right there. Scorpion came out of the leaves, and he's crawling up the headstone now. Oh man. I'm gonna try to rinse him off. All right, I'm not being cruel to him, but I just kind of poured some water on top of him. You can see he's fine right there. That is a big one too, but in case he had D2 on him, I wanted to get it off of him, so I rinsed him off with some water. Okay, he's coming for my fingers. He's coming for my fingers. All right, that's time to just let the D2 do its job on Isaac Carter stone here. We're gonna walk away from that little creepy guy. Actually, I love those little scorpions. I think they're super cool, but I don't want to get bit by one. And I don't think that I want it to touch me either. But I wanted to make sure I rinsed him off. In case he had any of that D2 on him. He shouldn't have gotten any D2 on him directly, just when we were rinsing it, and it was probably just the water that he got on him anyway. But don't want to do harm to him either, accidentally. So give him a little bath. Whew, scorpions. All right, so we're going to come around here and try to get some of this deadfall cleaned up. There's actually quite a few graves under here, so I've got the gas chainsaw and some help. Going to try to go through this and get this cleaned up and also expose and mark these graves right here. So this is one that I was looking for over here. Again, all of this is just deadfall. This doesn't come from these people in here vandalizing, but this deadfall did fall on a very special artifact in this cemetery. And I just spotted it under this limb, and I'm glad it's still in good shape, because this is the only marker for this grave, and by some chance, this marker has survived all these years. This is an old funeral home marker, and it's been knocked over from the tree. So I'm going to go ahead and pull it out of the ground, and we're going to set it out of the way for now. If it'll come, it's still... Okay, that's where it's bent over. Maybe it's not going to come out of the ground. We'll just leave it there and be careful. But this is a handwritten piece of paper, and if this had succumbed to the weather, we'd have no idea who's buried here. But this is Mrs. Ellen Moss, and she died March 21st, 19, and the exact date is gone on there, but judging from the other graves around here, is probably anywhere between the 1930s and the 1950s. But this is the only marker that Mrs. Ellen Moss has right here, and it is a piece of paper that has been sealed in this old funeral home marker for many, many years. So we'll try to get that back righted and also take a good picture of it. All right, so we've got this area pretty cleaned up from all this deadfall, and you can see that there's actually a bunch of graves out through here. There's one here. You can see an indention right there. There's a fieldstone marker for a different one that comes in right here. Joy was able to expose more of this fence a minute ago, so we can see that and how it used to go. I'll probably bring some stakes out here next time and actually stake that back up. So just in this little plot right here, we've got a bunch of graves, and of course all of these intentionally planted bulb flowers, and the boxwood, which has a grave under it. So just a rough count, there's 1, 2, 3, 4, and 5 with that funeral home marker there. So just in this small area, and I'm sure that there are some that I'm missing. So I'm going to come over here to the grave of Pinky Wilson, and we're going to sweep it off and also apply some D2 to it.
What I know is that the plantation of Josie Wilson was essentially across the highway, and I would make an assumption here that that means this Wilson name was passed on from that plantation.
Yeah.
And I know that the fellow who lives over there now is related to Josie Wilson, and he told me that he had a man. He knew about this cemetery. He grew up around here playing in the dirt road nearby and running around in the woods. And so he knew about this grave being in here. And fast forward, he had someone that worked for him named Pinky Wilson, who grew up around here. And he said, hey, I know where your grandfather is buried. Brought him out here so he could see the grave. He had no idea. I think he said he didn't even know he was named after him. Oh, wow. So that was even lost to time. So Pinky was born in 1885, which means he would have potentially been a son or a grandson, and maybe that name was passed on. That's true. I have been working on this Wilson plantation and trying to learn some of this stuff, so if I ever come across that would be pretty cool, but I don't know. That's really all I know about this grave, but yeah.
Do you know when it was that his grandson came out here and visited?
I'm gonna say it's been a long time, like gotcha. Probably, how old am I? Probably 20 or 30 years. I'm just barely over 30. All
right, so here's again the grave of Pinky Wilson, and I'm gonna spray this down with D2 to get some of this growth like that to not be on here anymore, but we are not gonna brush this headstone. In fact, we're barely even gonna touch it because this is extremely fragile. This is an old concrete headstone, and it's something that we see a lot out in this area with this type of concrete, and it's been really worn down by the weather, this growth on it, because it gets down in there and just makes this just absolutely dissolve and come apart. I'm going to come down here to the end, and you can just see as I rub my finger across it, I'm getting pieces of it that come off, and so very fragile stone. So if you're ever cleaning up a headstone like this, do not brush it. This D2 will help preserve it because it will stop some of this growth that's happening on here, and it will also, this D2 is also very good for concrete in addition to regular stone. But this will get in here and it'll stop some of this growth that's getting into this concrete and causing this damage. Because the unfortunate thing is even though it's etched in concrete, one day this stone will be unreadable because it'll just wear away with the weather. Lots of cleanup here, lots more graves exposed. All right, so like I said, it's been a month since I initially cleaned these graves out here, so I'm really excited to see how much better they look. Let's check them out. Another thing you can note is since it's been a month and the last time that I was here, you can see how much more green this cemetery has gotten. All of the muscadines have woken up and leafed out. Also, we'll take a look over there and talk about some of the new growth that is going to eventually overgrow this cemetery, especially now that the canopy that protected this place has been destroyed. But first we're going to come over here and we're going to have a look at the grave of Manson Hamler. Now you guys saw me use D2 on this grave. It has rained a bunch and it's looking absolutely amazing compared to how it started. Of course it needs to be brushed off again. Got all the pine tree pollen on it. But there he is, there's Manson Hamler, born in Talbot County, Georgia, August 2nd, 1846, and died in Meriwether County, Georgia, March 5th, 1913, age 66 years, 3 months, and 3 days. Now, Manson Hamler has a very nice headstone. So I find his grave particularly intriguing out here, the way that it's laid out. It's not like any of the other graves out here. Obviously, he has this kind of false crypt top going on and had a very nice headstone. Now, obviously from the birth date of 1846, it would appear as though Manson Hamler was probably born into slavery. And again, we know that the cemetery began as burial ground for people who were enslaved on the Mahone plantation. But Manson Hamler's, just this whole grave really captures my fascination. All I've been able to find out about him was I found him listed on a census record, and he was listed as mixed race, meaning that one of his parents was more than likely white and the other parent was African American. So that's interesting as well. Would love to know more about his history. Now let's check out these others over here. Josie Copeland, his grave it looks better than it did, but I have not seen that really wow cleanup that I was hoping to see on this one. I wanted it to look more like the back here, but it's still a little bit hard to read. But Josie Copeland was also born in 1846, so would love to know more about her as well. And she was originally a dozier, which is interesting, all the information that's printed on her grave there. And of course, we also cleaned the gravestone of Buford Hamler, daughter of Will and Lula Hamler. Now, this stone also has not turned, you know, that perfectly white, beautiful stone that we kind of wanted it to see, like we wanted it to look new. You can see down there is what the color of the stone should look like. So we'll probably need to come back and retreat all of these stones, maybe give them another brushing in the future, and keep going and see how much better they will look. But I'm also really excited to go over here and see that military marker that we cleaned up. It should be looking very good after this time. We'll have to watch out and make sure we don't wake up any more scorpions. Definitely needs another application of the D2 on the top of this stone, but look at the front of that. Looks absolutely amazing now compared to when we started. Need to get in there, need some more D2, still got some of that black spotting in there, but this stone is looking good as well. All right, so we're coming back into the other half of the cemetery, or the other third of the cemetery, I guess we should say, where we marked the 82 graves with flags over here. And I wanted to come over here and check on this grave. This was the first one we attempted to clean with D2 on day one, the grave of Jenny Horton, which is looking good, but again, is probably going to need another application of D2. So as far as the vandalism goes out here, there have not been any more incidents vandalism-wise. I think that what we're doing out here is working to deter the people from coming out here and doing any more of this sort of thing. They have been back. We do know that they were back because they did steal one of our security cameras out here. And of course, we notified local law enforcement after that theft happened, and they were unfortunately not captured on our other security camera here. But we've been working very close with local law enforcement to try to bring these people to justice, you know, for doing this. So, you know, at some point, maybe they will be caught. And that will be, you know, that'll definitely be a win. But right now, the biggest thing that we're focused on, we want those people to go to justice. We want them to face punishment for doing this. But the biggest thing that I think we need to focus on too is just keeping this place secure. And we're going to be doing that. I've got another upcoming video where I've actually got a sponsor who has sent me security cameras to go out here. So we're going to make sure that this place is fully covered in cameras. And finally, this is another area that I wanted to show on this video. Of course, here is the big tree that was cut down in the center that helped provide canopy that would have kept all of this, where you see the sun today, would have kept all of this in the shade. And what the lack of the canopy, now that you can see that side of the cemetery, you can still see a lot of shade over there, and it used to be like that over here, but now the canopy has been removed and we're getting a lot of sun here, and that is going to feed all of these little plants growing on the ground. They're able to get sunlight for the first time in who knows how long, and that's going to cause this place to overgrow when it has not been overgrown for so long, and that's a direct result of the theft of the trees out here. Already you can see all of the little pine saplings quickly growing up through here. And if you've ever attempted to walk through a pine forest where these things just spring up, it's almost impassable. I can actually show you that right over here. So we're just outside of the boundary of the cemetery in this kind of planted pine area, and this is honestly my biggest fear as to the long-term effects of the vandalism that's happened in this cemetery. I keep talking about the loss of the canopy, and even though we were rectifying the damage that was done to the graves and the mess that was left in the cemetery, this is what the biggest fear of long-term damage will be. Now this is a planted pine forest behind me, and you can see that it's almost, or it is impenetrable to be able to walk through that. So this cemetery, this historic cemetery that has been relatively clean for, 150 years, clean of all of this undergrowth like we're seeing here, it is going to quickly grow up like this. These are very quick growing trees, and as long as they're getting the sun that they're now getting there, they're going to grow up quickly, and they're going to turn parts of this cemetery into an impenetrable wall like this if we don't do something about it and stay on keeping it kind of cut down. So that's really one of the biggest concerns about the loss of all those historic trees and the canopy is going to do something like this. So I hope you've enjoyed this video today, guys. Seeing some more cleanup here. We found some more graves, and just getting this place back to how it should have been, and returning some of the respect to it. Don't forget to like, share, and subscribe, and we will be back here at this cemetery. Like I said, I've got a security camera sponsor, so we'll be talking about that in an upcoming video. We're going to try to finish flagging this cemetery and documenting how many graves there are total here, documenting every single grave that we can visibly see, even if it's just an indention. So I hope you guys enjoyed, and we'll see you next time.